Today we'll be looking at lesson 7.6. We'll be continuing with our geometry unit. I can solve area equations. Before we start, let's look at some jokes. Wasn't that a funny joke? Let's look at one more. Oh man, that was funny, wasn't it? Our first example. So we're going to build off of our last class where we had to find the area of triangles, trapezoids, and parallelograms. So here we're given a triangle. Let's look at our three steps. First, we want to identify the shape. It's a triangle. Next, we have to identify what formula to use. To find the area of a triangle, we have to do half base times height. The B stands for base and the H stands for height. The height of our triangle is 10 centimeters and our base is 15. Now we have to plug in the numbers into our formula and solve. Our height is 10 and our base is 15. Next we'll multiply 15 times 10 to get 150. And 150 times the half is the same thing as dividing by 2. So the area of this triangle was 75. Let's look at another example. Think about what our three steps are. The first step is to identify the shape. This shape is a triangle. The next step is to identify the formula. The formula is half base times height. Our last step is to solve. Now I see an issue here. Do you recognize what the problem is? Looking back at the previous example, can you identify what the error is? Is there an error? Here we have the area, while over here we need to find the area. So let's set up our equation. So we have our area, which is 240. We still have half. We don't have our base, but we have our height, which is 20. Now we'll simplify. Multiplying by a half is the same thing as dividing by 2. So we get B times 10 equals 240. Rewriting this like an equation, we have 10B equals 240. Now to get B by itself, you need to divide both sides by 10. When you divide by 10, take a 0 off the end. So B equals 24. So the base of our triangle is 24. You can think of it this way. When you need an area, you multiply. When you have an area, you divide. It's always helpful to set up an equation so you can clearly see all your steps. A garden in the shape of a trapezoid has an area of 44 4/10 square meters. One base is 4 3/10 meters long, and the other base is 10 5/10 meters long. The height of the trapezoid is the width of the garden. How wide is the garden? Let me pause the video Pause the video so you can see and reread the question on your own. So we'll have to use our steps. The first step was to identify the shape. What shape was this? It's a trapezoid. Trapezoid. It's a trapezoid. So now, what's the next step? To identify the formula. What's the formula for the area of a trapezoid? Area equals base 1 plus base 2. Now that we have our formula, we can start plugging information in. The area of our trapezoid was 44 4/10. So let's start with that. Our base 1 is 4 3/10, and our base 2 is 10.5. We have half, and we're missing our height. Now that we have our equation set up, we can begin to simplify. Let's start with parentheses first. 4.3 plus 10.5 is 14.8. Still simplifying the right side of my equation, I'll do 14 8/10 times a half. That'll get me 7.4 h. Now I have 44 equals 7.4 h. Next, since I'm multiplying, I'll have to divide both sides by 7.4. And h is equal to 6. So what's the height of our trapezoid, of our garden? It's 6. A triangular bandana has an area of 70 square inches. The height of the triangle is 8 3/4 inches. Write and solve an equation to find the length of the base of the triangle. So first we have to identify what shape this is. Tells us right here it's a triangle. Next we have to figure out what formula to use. It's half base times height. Finally, we need to solve our equation. So my equation looks like 70 8 3/4 times b times half. Okay, so now I'm going to convert my fraction into a decimal. Get 8 7.5 times b times a half. Since multiplying by a half is the same thing as dividing by 2, I'm going to divide 8 75/100 by 2. 4, 8, 7, 3. 2 goes into 15 7 times to get 14. Bring down the 1, add a 0. 4 375 thousandths. Next, I'll divide both sides by 4.375. And when I do that, I get b equals 16. A circle's circumference is 6 28/100. What's its diameter? Normally, we have a diameter and we're asked to find the circumference. So here, let's do our steps. Circle. Formula. If I need a circumference, I just use pi d. And then now I solve. If my circumference is 6 28/100, I'll put that for c. And I'll replace 3.14, or pi, with 3.14. So I'm missing my diameter. Next, since I have an equation and I'm multiplying, I'll divide both sides by 3.14. 6 28/100 divided by 3.14 is equal to 2. So the diameter of my circle is equal to 2. Before we answer number 6, let's take a look at our learning goal again. The learning goal is I can solve area equations. A triangular sail has a base length of 2 5/10 meters, and the area of a sail is 3 7,500 square meters. How tall is the sail? So our first step is to identify the shape, and it's a triangle. What shape is it? It's a triangle. Next, we have to identify the formula. The formula is half base times height. Now we'll plug numbers into our formula. So we have 3 7,500 is equal to half. The base is 2.5, and we're missing the height. First thing I'll do is I'll multiply 2.5 times the half, and I'll get 1.25. Now I'll rewrite this equation to look like this. Next, I'll divide both sides by 1.25, and that'll make h in the stained glass window is shaped like a trapezoid. So first thing is a trapezoid. That's our shape. Trapezoid. Next is identify the formula. The formula is half times height, base 1 plus base 2. Now let's plug numbers into our formula. Is going to be 4, and our second base is 2.5. And our height, well, we don't know our height, but our area is 3.9. Now we'll simplify to get 6.5 times height. Now we end up with 3.9 equals half h times 6.5. So we'll multiply a half times 6.5 to get 3.25h. Now we'll divide both sides by 3.25. Those cancel out, and we're left with 1.2 centimeters. So answer is 1.2 centimeters. The area of a circle is 50.24 square meters. What is the circle's diameter? So we have a circle. It knows how to get around. It has a radius from center to rim. And next we have to identify the formula, which is the area. So area equals pi r squared. Sounds like area to me. Okay, so now I have to plug in numbers. So the area is equal to 50.24. And I have to change the symbol into 3.14, radius squared. Now I'll solve my equation, getting r by itself. I'll divide both sides by 3.14. The 3.14 cancels out. When I divide 50.24 divided by 3.14, I get 16 is equal to r squared. Now I have to cancel out my 16, or my r, my squared part of it. So now to undo it, I'll do the opposite, which is rooting, to get 4 is equal to r. So my radius is equal to r. But the question wants us to find out what the diameter is. So our radius goes from center to rim, and the diameter goes from side to side, passing through the center. So that means we have to double our radius to get 8. So today we learned how to solve area equations.
Here is a circle, it knows how to get around. It has a radius from center to rim, and its diameter's a line that goes from side to side while passing through the center. Now isn't that simple? Pi r squared sounds like area to me. When I need a circumference, I'll just use pi d. Pi r squared sounds like area to me. When I need a circumference, I'll just use pi d. Here is a circle, it knows how to get around. It has a radius from center to rim, and its diameter's a line that goes from side to side while passing through the center. Now isn't that simple? Pi r squared sounds like area to me. When I need a circumference, I'll just use pi d. Pi r squared sounds like area to me. When I need a circumference, I'll just use pi d.